Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Corrie Pitzer from Safety on the Edge, and joining me today two really important guests. This is our third episode for Safety on the Edge podcast. I'm not sure what you call it these days. And I'll introduce Chris and David in a moment. But what we're doing today, and in a series of the Safety on the Edge podcasts, is to recap the Safety on the Edge conference that we launched and staged in Berkeley early this year in March. And it was really a moving event for a lot of people. For me personally, having been part of the team that really created this whole concept, and we want to take this to the next level, to another level of success, if I could put it like that. So just as a bit of a background, we had the conference, we had great speakers at the conference, amazing speakers actually, and we had as part of the Safety on the Edge, we had a very important process, and that was we have a system of awards. There are two awards. One was lifetime awards that we gave to 4 pioneers in safety, and that included the well-known Professor James Reason, who passed away just before the conference, and Drs. Woods, Diane Vaughan, and Carleen Roberts, all people who have made significant contributions to safety. But the other important aspect was the recognition of organizations. So we had a very rigorous process where organizations could apply to be part of this assessment. And once they've applied, we would give them a set of criteria, 36 criteria to do a self-analysis on. And we had a team that looked at those self-assessments, and of the 30 plus companies that participated, we selected 4 finalists. And the 4 finalists were Southern Company, Pernod Ricard, as the 2 in the category of corporations or bigger organizations. And then we had 2 other finalists, more site-based smaller companies. That was Ampelman in Holland and one of the sites of L'Oreal in North America. And then we had an interesting process. At the conference, the last session, the participants had to post and put their case forward. Why would our company be regarded as a top leading organization in safety? And that was presented to the audience. 10 minutes. That was the requirement. You have to do all of this in 10 minutes. And Southern Company was represented by Chris Hutzler, and he must have done a great job because they were voted in as the winner in the corporate division, Diamond Award. So to introduce, we have Chris Hutzler from Southern Company, and we have David Myers. If I could ask you to do a quick introduction of yourselves, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, good morning. David Myers, Vice President of Safety and Training at Southern.
And I'm Chris Hutzler. I'm the Safety and Health Director in Southern Company Services.
And just a little bit about Southern Company, if you could give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, so Southern Company is a publicly, traded, regulated utility that operates in our main footprint in the southeastern United States. Our core area is in Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. However, we have several subsidiaries that make up Southern Company, where we're actually spread across the entire continental United States. We're from California all the way up into Maine. So we have several different technologies from a generation perspective, from coal, hydro to renewables when it comes to wind, solar, and batteries. And then we also have a significant transmission system across the southern United States as well.
Yeah, don't forget our natural gas distribution. We're in 4 states. In total, we're around 9 million customers nationwide.
9 million customers. How many employees?
Roughly 29,000.
Yeah, just shy of 30,000. Yeah.
So Southern Company is a significantly important organization in the United States as a whole in terms of energy provision, but it's also a very large organization, which comes with its challenges, I guess. How do you roll out a concept or an intervention or an approach in safety across so many diverse organizations in your whole makeup, which is astounding if you think about it, because you have achieved that in no small way. And this is the purpose of this discussion, is to find out a little bit, how did this happen? How does it happen in an organization yours? And what can other companies learn from this? So maybe the first thing that I wondered about is what does winning the Safety on the Edge Excellence Award mean for Southern Company? What does it mean for you?
Well, it's huge, right? I mean, all of us, I think, in our professions, when it comes to safety and health, you believe in what you're doing. You believe you're making a difference. You believe that you're adding value to the company, but also to the people. So you want to believe that what you're doing is working and is the right thing to do. And to me, this is just a tremendous confirmation that the efforts that we're making, the direction that we're heading, what we're doing is the right thing. It's the right thing. And then beyond that, Corey, I think the way you guys set up the recognition with the participants voting, that meant as much to us, I think, as anything. That we put what we're doing out there, and to allow people who are in a variety of backgrounds and different places around the globe, for them to see what we're doing and for them to vote for us, that, hey, you guys are doing the right thing and we appreciate what you're doing. The questions that we got, to me, that was just, really, that was the award. It really was. That was just really tremendous. So it means a ton.
Yeah.
And Corey, I'll just add, it really aligns with our values. So many awards that are out there that we see are counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve at Southern. We want to make sure that we continue to embrace our culture, embrace frontline engagement in everything that we do, have good sound management systems, but recognize the proactive things that we do in safety. And then finally, just the engagement from leadership, how they say what they mean and back that up. We felt like this was an award that really aligned with our values, and it felt great to be recognized for that.
Well, and David, that actually, it really lines up. During the conference, Kim Green, who's CEO of Georgia Power Company, she actually made a comment in and around, hey, you're not going to see Southern Company receiving these awards for traditional safety measures that we typically have seen over the last forever.
Yeah.
So that just speaks to this type of an award and what this is really about. And I think, you guys really have nailed it with the Safety on the Edge, the idea of, pressing that envelope and pressing the edge and doing something new, and that, what everybody else has not done. So for us to be recognized in that manner, that really does match the direction that we're headed with Southern Company and safety.
Yeah. I must mention for the audience that actual lost time injury or DART rates or RIRs, TRIFs, was not part of the criteria. We didn't ask you about those because we know that what is really reflected in safety is not what you see. And what reminded me too, and I remember Kim Green's speech, which was just out of this world for most people at this conference. They just couldn't believe how impactful it was. But she mentioned there that we, if I can paraphrase a little bit, but our RIR rate is probably the highest it ever was, or in 24 years or something. But I do believe we've never been as safe as we are now, given that we have actually unleashed the power of people in the organization, which was really tremendous. And that is, I think, a testimony to the leadership. And so another thing that I wondered about is what role, and leaders do play a role in, of course, in the culture of the organization. That's tremendously important. But what role? How do you see your leadership play a key role in that, and how did they shape the culture? What did they do? What did they not do?
Yeah, Corey, you mentioned Kim's speech just a minute ago, but I could unplug Kim and plug in just about every one of our leaders, CEOs, executives across the system. They're bought into our values, our belief system of what we're trying to achieve. And every leader knows that their response matters and how they engage with people and how that impacts culture. And so it's been a long road. It wasn't easy. There's bumps every way that you turn. But I will tell you that we have great alignment with our leadership. They're bought into all things about our employees, our front lines. How do we make it better for them? How do we improve the transparency in what we're trying to achieve? And it's starting to pay dividends. We are hearing from employees. We are seeing them engage. We are hearing about things that we would have never heard if we were measuring recordables, and we measured those for years. And we heard about the things that we probably couldn't not hear about. But today we're hearing about the little things that add up and lead to bigger holes in your processes, in your procedures and your programs. Without good leadership and without the way that they engage with our employees, we would never hear those things, and we would not be where we're at today.
Yeah, and I think about David he uses the analogy of chasing numbers, and that's one of the things that I think, that we can fall into that trap of, setting certain goals. And look, I mean, good employees, they try to reach those goals. But you end up, good motives with, and good intentions. Oftentimes they end up with, a bad solution, I guess, if you will. And we ended up, with well-intentioned, don't want anyone to get hurt. But what that ended up being is people trying to find and figure out ways to manipulate that number. Yeah. And I think there are so many people who fall into that trap. It's a real trap. And leadership understanding and realizing that that's actually what's going on, that's very, very important. And once you have that realization, now leaders want to do the right thing. Leaders are trying to do the right thing. So understanding that and knowing that piece of the puzzle, I think that was very, very important for us, in that we thought we had a right approach, but it really wasn't giving us what we wanted to get, and sticking to that. I mean, that really mattered. I think that was a big swing in our leadership perspective, and it's made a huge difference in the culture of our company.
I think people often don't understand well enough, I think, that, the moment an incident happens, that's the moment the first person start to manipulate the number, because nobody wants to hurt the company's safety record. Nobody wants to send bad news around them. Nobody wants to admit guilt. If I did something, injuring myself in my backyard here, the first thing I wondered about is who's seen this? How can I not talk about this? It's like, and so that's where it already starts, and it's a huge hurdle for management leaders to get through and get that information out. Now that triggers the next question for me is there is a traditional focus on compliance in safety, but what made you stand apart and what the whole conference was about pushing the edge, pushing pioneering in safety, and that is bringing new ideas, new concepts into the way we manage safety. What were those new things that you embarked on that was considered leading the industry? Just some examples of the kind of things that you started doing when others were not doing.
Yeah, first I think it goes back to, we stopped doing what others were doing.
There you go. Yep.
We are all in, fully committed to addressing culture. And sometimes you got to stop doing some things that drive you down the wrong path. So I think that number one is we stopped doing some things just because everybody else did it. That was hugely impactful. I think the other is we just really double down on engaging with our frontline, really understanding their perspective, understanding what, through their lens and their eyes, what they were addressing each and every day, and trying to really understand that and be a good partner with every frontline employee, frontline leader, middle management, but working together on a common goal to, number one, address the cultural things that open up those doors, but then really take a step back, listen, and try to address problems, empower employees at the front line to help address those issues that we see each and every day. That's probably first.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, the first comment there that David made around stopping, that may be the hardest. That may be the hardest part to this. You think about, Corey, like you mentioned, hey, something happens to you, something happens in your backyard or whatever. Well, if that happens at the work location, well, it's very easy to do what you were describing there for supervision to manage the case, for disability management to manage that case in a certain way, for the reaction of the peers in the work group, for that to be a culture of blame that, I made a mistake, or I'm dumb, or I'm a lesser of a person because, I made that decision to do something. How in the world could I do that? Getting that type of momentum stopped, that's difficult. That is a difficult thing to do. And in fact, it's something that you constantly have to be aware of, and that you constantly have to be intentional about that type of culture. I think some of that's human nature to us, where the failure, we look, people want to win. They want, what are we trying to win? We want to win. We want to do well. And there is some level of embarrassment that I think people feel, and your culture can make that worse, or it can make that better. So getting that momentum stopped, I mean, that sounds like, hey, what is the next new best, thing to do? When in some cases, the best thing to do is stop doing a lot of what you are currently doing.
Yeah. And Corey, I'll add, we're not in this alone at Southern. We believe we have some success, and we think we're doing some really good things. But we had to drop the pride a little bit and learn from others. And we have engaged with great thought leaders in the industry like yourself. We have not shied away from peer benchmarking, learning from others, other companies. We have so many peers in the industry that have made Southern better by allowing us to engage with them, understand the things that they're doing. And we welcome that. We want to engage with as many people as we can in the industry, because we're all trying to achieve the same thing when it comes to safety of our workforce. But not be too prideful to say, hey, they have a better way. Let's stop. Let's address this differently. Let's approach this in a way that, hey, someone else has had some success. Let's borrow that. Let's rob that and dust it off and make it ours. And that sometimes is difficult to do, because we think what we're doing, we think that the process that we're in, the programs that we've developed, or the innovation that we think is the best, maybe sometimes there's a better one out there. And so dropping that pride, being a little humble sometimes, and listening to others and engaging with them, and then giving back. We always try to give back to our peers as well. If there's something that we think we're doing well, we're always willing to share, like this discussion today. We want to be open and transparent about that, because at the end of the day, we're trying to impact the lives of the workforce out there.
And Corey, I'll tell you, just a real example for us, the way it used to be when an injury happened, we would, and somebody was, if it was a recordable accident or somebody was hurt seriously, an investigation would open up. We'd start that investigation, and we would look at more about that employee than the circumstances around that. And I mean, I remember, looking back and going, okay, well, hey, this person's had, 5 accidents over the last 10 years. Obviously, this employee has a problem. And being challenged with those new ideas from others, like, around things like human performance, and how we take a look at that situation now, where it's, hey, What are the systematic issues that are at play here? What controls are not easily accessible or easily applied to that specific task? What have we done holistically, not as an individual, but as a systematic approach, where this occurred? That was a huge shift for us. It sounds simple. It sounds like an easy thing to do, but it really is a big change when you have years worth of history of this is how you do something. Here again, you had to stop that.
Yeah.
And you have to initiate something different. And that was just something that jumped into my mind, as that looking at things from a control perspective, looking at things from a system perspective, instead of just focusing on an individual.
Yeah.
You said something there that was pretty impactful that we probably need to unpack a little bit that often gets missed. He mentioned, hey, there was a time where we had an employee that year after year they kept getting hurt. That's probably an employee problem. That's a huge thing to unpack for us, because what we have seen in our history and what we see with peers, and we talk to peers all the time, is that they're chasing, again, going back to that injury rate, that DART rate, trying to manage employees and those injuries as quickly as possible to reduce the DART rate, or not meet that threshold for trigger for injury rate. And oftentimes what we've seen, and we've seen a huge benefit from, hey, we're aggressively trying to pursue getting them the best and the most appropriate treatment for whatever has occurred, right? Strains and sprains are an issue across the board in this industry, and they will continue to be. But they get worse when you rush to get them back to work, or don't treat them medically appropriately, or do not give them the time to heal properly. It leads to more severe and serious injuries down the road.
That's right.
And what we have done is gone full 180 out to make sure that we have a good medical management team to support them, that we give them the time they need to heal, to push them to go to that therapy, to make sure that they get those medications they need, or whatever it is they need to heal properly, and then slow down that push to get them back to work to meet that target. And that's been a huge change for us. And it's been a huge trust builder with our employees to really see and demonstrate that we care about them and we want them to recover and heal properly. And that has paid dividends down the road when it comes to engaging with employees.
Yeah. If you're showing up to your 100,000 hours without a lost time celebration with a guy in a wheelchair and his leg propped up, then something's wrong. You're not doing, and you know what David said there is that you show people that you care. To me, and in my research on culture, the most fundamental, foundational characteristic of a powerful culture is where people know the company, the management, my leaders care about me. That's why they want to be safe. They don't want to be safe to meet industry standards, or they don't want to be safe to look good in charts. They want to be safe because they care about us. That is an enormous trust builder in an organization. And it starts with how you respond to a failure in an organization. The very powerful avenue. The other thing that I think that struck me from Southern Company is you were early leaders, early adopters of the focus on SIF risks as against accidents and incidents. And I know you started way back in 2016, 2017 with this approach, or this focus in your organization. How has that helped this whole focus or this whole understanding of building trust in the organization?
Yeah, and I'd love to tell this story, and it was a game changer moment for me, and I think a lot of the folks in the room at the time. Actually, the background here is one of our hydro facilities. This is a story around one of our hydro facilities, but I remember being asked to come talk about an injury, and it was an individual walking down at our hydro facilities down the dam, and a raccoon jumped up and scared this individual and jumped out of the way and twisted his ankle, had a sprain to the ankle. And back in those days, we were trying to manage every single injury, and it was really innocent and harmless. The raccoon jumped out and startled the individual, jumped out of the way, twisted an ankle. So I was asked to come present to some leaders about that, and was given, 30 minutes or so to talk about how that injury occurred and how we're going to prevent that from happening everywhere across our system. And I asked I said, we'll cover that and we'll tell you about our action plan, but can you indulge me for a few minutes? And I want to talk about 2 other events that had occurred during that same time period that did not result in any injury whatsoever. That was not on the topic to discuss for that day, and it was not on the minds of really anybody all that much, except for those directly involved with it. In that same time period, we had a mobile crane tip over and just narrowly missing several contract workers. In that same time period, we had a vehicle cross at one of our fossil facilities, cross the railroad inches before the rail car came through, and almost had a fatal accident. But because neither one of those resulted in a recordable injury, we were focused on the sprained ankle of the individual walking down that dam, jumping out of the way of a raccoon. That right there was a defining moment in my eyes for myself and those leaders in the room that said, hey, we need to look at things differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those deals, Corey, where we had security footage of that piece of equipment crossing that railway crossing, and it was one of those deals where you can imagine, you can picture in your head watching a video online nowadays of those close calls where it's like, wow, just a matter of seconds, and that train would have hit that piece of equipment. And just, the realization that hits you when you're sitting in a room talking about varmint control, and look, maybe that has its place. But it certainly should not supersede those big ticket items where you had a near fatality. I mean, you really did.
Yeah. And it requires an exclusive focus on that. You have to start to uncover them because they're not events that featured in your measurements. They are potential events, and you got to start looking into the deeper side of it.
Yeah. It really catapulted us to your question. When we started going down that early adoption of SIF prevention, it really opened the eyes of a lot of our leaders that, hey, we are looking at things maybe not how we should.
Yeah.
And that really helped us get there.
I have a funny thing that happened to me in the last few days. I saw this quote, and this is and it's just a funny story. So this guy goes on a holiday without his wife, and for some reason, and he sends her a text message back and said, the weather is beautiful. I'm enjoying every moment here. I wish you were here. But he forgot to type the last E on here. I wish you were her. Now, that small mistake is the difference between a beautiful, positive message and a catastrophic event in his life.
Yes.
And that is just so typical of how these events live around us. That they are just seconds away. And I had this experience before COVID where I helped an organization, a mining organization, to the process was called elimination of fatalities. And we had teams of people coming together on one site, about 12, 15 people from different parts of the organization. And we would go into the workplaces and engage with frontline employees to look for these, what I started calling far misses, events that are not near probable, but could happen. We took likelihood out of the equation. Even if it's unlikely, if it's impossible, what are those events? And it was amazing, the discovery that came through that, because we eventually realized just how many thousands of events were sitting just under the surface, right there waiting to happen. And so it's quite...
And Corey, I think too, in our organization, and just like there where you were talking about going and doing that dive into that, there are things, right? There are things in our industry, there are things in others' industries that those are the categories where the worst events are going to take place, right? We we call those our critical risk areas. We know that there are certain areas in the utility industry where if bad things are going to occur, they are most likely going to occur while doing tasks that are associated. We have 10 of those areas that are most likely going to occur in those 10 areas. So giving some attention, those conversations like you had, hey, what are those tasks? What are those jobs that you're going to be involved with where maybe those bad things, maybe the likelihood doesn't occur very often, but if it occurs, it's going to be a bad event. So I think that's been key for us as well.
Yeah, it's no use after the event to say to people, this is a 1 in a 10-year event. That means nothing to people in that regard. So you are pioneers in safety. That's why you were voted by your peers as pioneers in safety. So what is the next challenge? What is the next frontier for Southern Company?
So I think what's on top of mind for me, I mentioned I have a responsibility for safety and training. It's the new workforce, the workforce of tomorrow. There's a skill gap in some. There's an exodus of tenured employees just based on timing, and it's that perfect storm. What I think about the great work that we've done. Chris says something about, hey, you got to cut your grass. It's been raining, the sun's out. You can cut your grass, and it's just meticulous. It's manicured, looks great. But a little bit more rain, a little bit more sunshine, that grass gets a little out of hand again, right? And I think about that ever since he has said that. I think about that every day. We have put controls in place, and we've built processes centered around tenured employees with experience. And what I fear most each and every day, and what keeps me up at night, is the testing those boundaries, testing those controls. Why are they effective for this current workforce, and where will they not be for a less tenured, a less experienced workforce that we're about to engage with? How do we get them up to speed quickly through technology that they learn differently? They come from other industries. There is going to be a hole in our processes. There's going to be a hole in how we expect employees to engage based on human nature. We talk about human performance all the time in our world. But what are the things that we need to do and look forward to put better controls in place for that new workforce? It's going to look different than today. We can't let that grass grow and continue to get out of shape.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's thought provoking. And you're constantly trying to figure that out. And at the same time, it's exciting. I think about where we started, Corrie, where you started, from a safety perspective and what that looked like. And we talk about our journey. A lot in safety. But where we started our journey, even though those concerns or those gaps that we're going to need to identify, they may be here in front of us today, but I also am very excited about the new workforce that's coming into play too. They're starting their journey in a different place than we did. I like to believe they're starting their journey in a much better place than where we started our journey. And to see what's next, kind of to your question, I'm very excited to see what's next out of this new group of safety professionals that's coming on the scene that has a different perspective, a different starting place, and just what are they going to bring to the table that we haven't even thought about yet?
Yeah. No, absolutely. The challenges are almost unknown in many ways, because we're living in such a transient, changing world these days that you'd almost have to be ready for what's that famous book, Expect the Unexpected. Yeah. You'd have to be so ready for what you don't know is the next challenge or the next complexity in the organization, and that certainly is that.
And technology is changing, Corey, so quickly. It's so fast right now. The types of technology we deploy from a generation standpoint, the technology that we use and intelligence that we use to help us learn and grow quicker. The gamification of things that we see that the new employees that we engage with, want and desire. It's a different feel than it's ever been. But one thing's for sure, it's growing rapidly.
Yeah.
And we have to keep up with it.
And so for us, though, there's this need to be agile when it comes to how you do some things. But there's also, I believe, a need to be firm and stand on what you know your values to be. You know, we have really stuck with the idea of that we're going to manage our critical risk, that we're going to do that. We have held firm to the idea that we're going to be a learning organization, that we're going to take opportunities and learn, whether that be after an event occurs or proactive, and make up, you know, possible events to come up with solutions to. And then we are going to continuously improve. You know, we have not arrived. we have not arrived. And because things do change, you know, it's constant. So those three things, though it's important for us to adapt and change with technology and with the workforce, there's also some things that we need to hold true to as well, that we know from a value standpoint, we're going to be successful if we hold to those values.
Yeah. That words you used there reminds me of a question I was asked once in my work as a consultant to this organization, and I had this discussion with the senior vice president in HR and the senior vice president in safety, and they said to me, the HR vice president said to me, "So if we follow these approaches and concepts that you talk about, how will we know that we have arrived?" And I said to her, and that's why I never got to work with this company. I said to her, if you think you're going to arrive, this is not the process for you. And if you actually have arrived in your mind, you've certainly not arrived at the right place. And that is so unending a journey, a roll on. There's no start and there's no stop to this process of safety, which is, you said the journey we're on. You know, that is a never-ending journey. Amazing.
Hey, Corey, when we think about the clock resetting, you know, your OSHA log or whatever it may be, you know, first of the year, it doesn't reset for employees. It doesn't reset for the things that we're trying to do, and that's the fallacy. I think that we get in that trap of always going back to trying to make that number. Try to arrive, try to make that. If we just make it to the 31st of December, we've done it, success. Well, you know what? Tomorrow morning it happens all over again, right? We got to keep going.
Yeah, start again every day. Yeah. My last question is this, and it's to you personally, and you are embodiment of a key role player in your organization. You have many key role players in your organization, but what is it that keeps you personally inspired? What makes you excited every day about safety and pushing safety to the edge?
Well, Corey, I think, you know, I made mention, you know, I think if you're in the safety profession, I mean, it's a very noble profession. I mean, we go to work, we're working with our coworkers, but, you know, really knowing that, you know, that person has somebody else. There's a family, there's friends, there's somebody else out there in that circle. So the effort that you're putting into safety, yes, it is good business. And yes, it is wise to do so, but you're making a difference in people's lives. Somebody's mom, somebody's dad, somebody's son, somebody's daughter. I mean, those things it's a significant, it matters. It matters. And for us to see, we mentioned, you know, hey, some of our concern is, you know, mid-career hires, new people, all these things coming into our business. But to hear an employee come in and make a statement that, hey, in my past job or my past career or my past life, you know, safety was just one of those things that we checked a box. When I come here, I feel like you guys really mean it. Every meeting I go to, somebody's bringing it up. If I see a leader talking, they're talking about that. You guys are being real with us about, what we need to do and how we need to, proceed in our jobs. When you hear things like that from an individual who really maybe doesn't even know me, personally, it just makes there's true fulfillment. There's true fulfillment in knowing what you're doing is making a difference in somebody's life, even outside of work. You're doing a good job for the company, and what you do really, really matters. And getting that feedback from an individual like that, it means the world.
Yeah, very similar for me, Corey. You can't be in this type of job and not like people. For me, it's even more personal. I grew up in a blue collar family. Chris did as well. I have a father and a brother. They're both heavy equipment operators. I have a brother-in-law that's a lineman for another utility. But when I get out there and I'm engaging with our workforce, I see those three people in my life, and I see them in everybody we serve. And what motivates me is that they have made a living working hard in a risky area, in a risky business, and provided for my family. And I want to do everything I can in the role that I'm in to help them be successful. And I see them in every individual worker at Southern. And it motivates me each and every day to treat them and do the things that I would want done for my family.
Well, that's very inspirational, David and Chris. You are inspirational. You inspire me, and you inspire people around you. And I truly hope that this podcast will also be inspirational for other organizations, for other people that listen to this, to really challenge themselves and take safety to the next step, and to really keep in mind that very fundamental thing that you just said there, both of you just said there, that it's people around you that inspire you, that makes a difference. Because safety can be a very negative thing, isn't it? We look at the wrong things that people do and the mistakes people make, but safety is actually a noble profession. As you said, it is a beautiful thing in an organization. This is where we can come together and achieve something very positive that we all benefit from, in so many ways. So I just want to personally thank you both for the work that you've done. You can't register for the next Safety on the Edge Excellence Award. You're excluded for 2 years, unfortunately. But hopefully, what people here today will inspire others to come forward and participate in this whole process. So thank you very much from my side.
Oh, thank
you, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.